92% of people who go on a strict, no-spending debt payoff plan quit before they're debt-free. It's not because they're lazy or lack discipline. They quit because the plan expects them to stop living. No coffee out, no dinners with friends, no new clothes, nothing, for years at a time. Here's what's even worse. Quitting a plan like that doesn't just waste your time, it also costs you money. When people drop a strict budget, they often overspend right after, trying to make up for what they missed. So the strict plan doesn't just fail, it can actually leave you worse off than when you started. Today, I'm not here to give you just another trick or budgeting rule you've heard before. Instead, I'll show you a complete debt payoff system with 4 connected steps that work together so you don't have to rely on willpower alone to succeed. Stick with me until the end because the 3rd step is the one most people get wrong. It's often the difference between paying off your debt for good and slipping back into debt a year and a half later. Here's why this matters right now, more than it has in a decade. Right now, the average credit card interest rate is over 20%, and for many people, it's closer to 24 or 25%. That's not a typo, and it's not just a rare issue. If you're carrying a balance, you're paying rates that would have been considered loan sharking in the past. Meanwhile, the cost of living, rent, groceries, insurance has gone up faster than most people's paychecks. So the old advice to just tighten your belt and grind it out doesn't really work anymore. For most people, that approach barely makes a dent compared to what high-interest debt costs every month. Imagine you have a $5,000 balance at 24% interest. If you only pay the minimum, you'll rack up over $1,000 a year in interest, money that doesn't buy you anything or help you build anything. That's the problem these systems are designed to solve. Let me be clear before we go on. Everything in this video is for education, not personal financial advice. I don't know your income, your interest rates, or your specific debts. What works for one person might not work for another. Debt payoff can also involve tax rules, collections, and credit reporting, which vary by location. So use this as a framework, not a final answer. If your situation is complex, talk to a licensed financial advisor or a nonprofit credit counselor for help with your exact numbers. Okay, let's build the system. System 1, the 90-10 split, the pressure valve. A friend of mine, Marcus, once made a debt payoff plan so strict that he was eating rice for 4 months. In the first week, he stuck to it perfectly. By week 3, he bought new headphones because his old ones broke. By week 6, that just this once turned into a weekend trip he couldn't afford. He told me, "I've been so good, I deserve it." Marcus wasn't lacking discipline. He just made a plan with no room for real life, and it fell apart all at once, costing him more in the end. Most debt advice misses this key idea. If your plan has no room for enjoyment, it's likely to break, and when it does, it usually breaks badly. Think of a pressure cooker with no release valve. It doesn't just simmer forever, it eventually explodes. The release valve doesn't slow things down, it just lets out a little pressure at a time so the whole system keeps working. So, here's System 1, and it's simple arithmetic. Every extra dollar you free up for debt, a raise, a side gig, a budget adjustment, gets split 90-10. 90% goes straight to debt, 10% goes into an account you can spend on anything, no explanation required. Say you find an extra $300 a month. Under this split, $270 goes to your debt every month, and $30 goes into a fund that's entirely yours to enjoy. Over a year, that's $3,240 attacking your balance. Real progress. Plus, $360 you never have to feel guilty about spending. Compare that to a plan that demands all $300 go to debt with nothing left over. Mathematically, it's $360 more toward debt over the year. But if that all-or-nothing version has even a 50% chance of collapsing by month 6, which realistically it does for most people, the 90-10 version wins by a margin because it's the one still running in month 12. Here's what to do. Open a separate account, this can be a free one at your current bank, and call it your guilt-free fund. Every time you make a debt payment, move 10% of that amount into this account right away. The only rule is that you can spend this money on anything except more debt with no guilt. This works because it gives you small rewards along the way, making it easier to stick with your plan for the long haul. Now, here's where it gets genuinely interesting, because which debts you attack first with that 90% matters just as much as the split itself. Most people don't realize that the smartest way to pay off debt on paper isn't always the way that actually helps you finish. System 2, the blended attack order. Why being right can make you quit. Quick refresher on two well-known methods. The avalanche method has you pay off your highest interest debt first. Mathematically, this saves the most money over time. The snowball method has you pay off your smallest balance first, regardless of rate. It's less efficient on paper, but behavioral research on consumer debt has consistently found that people who follow it are more likely to eliminate all their debt, because small early wins keep motivation alive. Imagine you're carrying three balances: a $1,200 store card at 28% interest, a $6,000 personal loan at 11%, and a $9,500 credit card at 23%. Pure avalanche logic says attack the $9,500 card first. But the store card, smaller, higher rate, and close in impact, can be gone in a couple of months if you throw extra payments at it. Two coworkers with debt loads like this once took opposite approaches. One followed the math exactly, while the other closed the smaller balance first for the quick win. A year later, the one chasing quick wins had eliminated two accounts entirely and was still going strong. The one following pure math had made more technical progress on paper, but hadn't finished a single account and was starting to lose steam. Think of it this way. Avalanche is like training for a marathon by running the hardest hill every day from the start. It's efficient in theory, but most people quit before it gets easier. Snowball is like starting with a flat mile you know you can finish, and finishing something small helps you come back the next day. System 2 blends them. Pay off your smallest debt first only if it's within roughly 10 to 15% of the balance of your highest interest debt. In the example above, the $1,200 store card qualifies, it's small and high rate, so kill it first. The $6,000 loan doesn't qualify against the $9,500 card, so once the store card is gone, you go straight to interest rate order. This keeps you close to the mathematically efficient path while still handing you a real finish line early. Here's what to do. List every debt you have across three columns: balance, interest rate, minimum payment. Rank them two ways, by size and by rate. If your smallest debt and your highest rate debt are close in size, kill the small one first, then swing hard at the highest rate, and mark it somewhere visible the moment it's gone. This works because it hands your brain a completed task early, and a completed, visible task measurably increases follow-through on everything you attempt afterwards. Before we go on, let's take a step back. Freedom built on burnout usually doesn't last long enough to count. And this next part, this is the part nobody talks about. It's not about the money you're actively paying toward debt. It's about the money you never even notice moving. These tactics only work if you understand the real reason behind them. Here's a hard truth. Most people don't actually have a debt problem. They have a gap between what they know and what they do. You already know you should spend less than you earn, and that high interest debt is costly. What really stops most people isn't a lack of knowledge. It's that every plan they've tried makes them feel like their whole life has to shrink to fit their debt. So flip it. Your debt has to shrink to fit your life, not the other way around. Sprinting the first quarter mile of a marathon because the crowd's watching at the start line feels impressive for about 90 seconds. Then you're the one walking, hands on your knees, at mile 4, while everyone who paced themselves quietly passes you. Debt payoff rewards pacing, not adrenaline. The goal was never to suffer the most. The goal is to be free early. System 3, the 1% escalator, the part almost nobody applies correctly. I mentioned earlier that this step is where many people struggle, so let's take our time with it. Here's the financial principle. Small, automatic increases compound the same way interest does, except this time in your favor. This is the same logic behind automatic increases in workplace retirement contributions, which research has shown dramatically boost how much people save over time, precisely because the increases happen without anyone having to make a fresh decision each time. Apply that to debt. Every 3 months, increase your debt payment by 1% of your income. Say you earn $4,000 a month. 1% is $40. In your first quarter, you add $40 to your payment. Next quarter, another $40, so you're now paying $80 more than when you started. By the end of year 1, you're contributing an extra $160 a month compared to where you began, without a single moment that felt like a dramatic sacrifice. Over 2 years, that steady climb can mean thousands of extra dollars thrown at your balance that never once required willpower, because each individual increase was too small to notice. Here's why almost nobody applies this correctly. Either they forget to raise it at all, so the plan stalls out flat for years, or they get overly ambitious in month 1, spike the payment too high, and burn out by month 4, landing right back in the collapsed plan trap from System 1. The whole point of the escalator is that it's boring. It's a treadmill incline. Bump it up 1% and your stride barely changes. But do that consistently over a year and you're working at a completely different level than when you started without ever feeling a sharp jump. What to do instead? Set a recurring calendar reminder for the first day of every quarter that says, increase debt payment by 1%. When it hits, execute it without reopening the conversation with yourself, the same way you wouldn't renegotiate your rent every month. This works because removing the decision removes the friction, and friction is the real reason people who could easily afford an increase never make one. Stay with me, because this next system is where most cut your spending advice completely misses the point. System 4, the value audit. Stop cutting blindly. Most debt advice tells you to cut spending across the board, evenly, like trimming a hedge with your eyes closed. The problem, it treats a dinner with a close friend exactly the same as a subscription you forgot you had. Financially, those two expenses look identical. Psychologically, they're nothing alike. And psychology is what actually determines whether you stick with a plan for 2 years or 2 weeks. Imagine your last 60 days of spending laid out before you. Say you're paying $15 a month for a streaming service you haven't opened since spring, $12 for an app you downloaded once, and $18 for a duplicate service. That's $45 a month, $540 a year attached to nothing you actually value. Meanwhile, a standing $60 a month dinner with a friend who lives across the country might look, on paper, like the expensive line item, but one of these is quietly draining your account for nothing. The other is one of the few things you look forward to every month. The concept here is value-aligned spending. People don't usually overspend because they're bad with money. They overspend on things that don't actually matter to them, because they've never sat down and separated what matters from what's just noise. Think of your spending like an actual garden. You don't rip out every plant to conserve water. You find the specific weeds and pull those while deliberately watering what you want to grow. Here's what to do instead. This week, go through your last 60 days of transactions and mark each one plus, minus, or 0. Plus if it genuinely added value, minus if you regret it, 0 if you don't remember it happening. Cut the minuses and zeros completely, redirect that money to debt, and don't touch a single plus.
This works because you're not cutting your quality of life, you're cutting spending that was never contributing to it. So the cut doesn't register as a sacrifice because it wasn't one. Let's bring the whole system together because none of these 4 patterns works particularly well in isolation. Split every extra dollar 90-10 so you're making real progress without living on empty. Blend how you order your debts
So you get real finish lines along the way instead of grinding toward one distant goal. Quietly raise your payment 1% every quarter so your progress compounds without a dramatic sacrifice you'll resent later. And audit your spending by actual value rather than blanket restrictions. So what you cut is what was never actually adding anything anyway. This isn't the fastest possible way to pay off debt, given a spreadsheet built for someone with no life outside their budget. It's the fastest way real people actually finish. Because a plan you abandon in month 4 gets you exactly nowhere, no matter how impressive the math looked on paper the day you started it. Notice something about all 4 systems. Not one of them asked you to feel guilty about a purchase or treat every dollar as a moral test. Every system here redirects money that was never actually improving your life anyway. That's the real difference between a plan that lasts and one that doesn't. It's not how strict it is, it's how honest it is about what you're actually willing to sustain. If this gave you a complete system instead of just one more scattered tip, subscribe, because next week I'm covering exactly what to do with your money the moment you become debt-free, so you don't fall into the trap most people fall into right after, paying off debt completely, relaxing for a year, and slowly sliding right back into the same hole. You don't need to stop living to get free. You just need a system built for the life you're actually living, not the one a spreadsheet wishes you were living instead.